everyone, Blender Helix Alpha here again with our basic materials and texture management beginner's tutorials for Blender here. This is part 2. Thanks a lot for watching. We went over the materials tab and a few other things, how to splat on or preview texture in GLSL mode in the last part. But this part we're going to be going over procedural generation of textures and what you can do with textures and all about this tab here. So we have our GLSL preview cube, but if we render it out we can see that it is actually not textured. We're actually in textured mode, and in the preview we can see that it is textured, but if we go on our camera and we hit F12 we can see that it is not textured. So what we want to do is assign it a material like we did in the last part, and this is actually just a basic Lambert. We can adjust all this stuff here. We have a lot of really advanced material parameters here, but we want to go to our textures panel just to the right here, and we have all of these available slots. Blender has an enormous amount of slots, and in 3ds Max I think they call this a sub-material, something like that, a subsurface, or not a layered material, something like that. But basically every material in Blender has a very, very large capacity for different textures and how they work with each other. It's basically like having a group of layers or adjustment layers on a Photoshop document. However, a lot of people don't really go into all that. It's really not needed to go and use all of these slots. Usually you just want to use the first one or two, depending on what you're doing. Today we're just going to be using the first one, because all we're going to be doing is applying this texture to this cube, so it's actually part of the material. So what we want to do is select our first slot or our third slot, or whichever slot you decide on using, but we're going to hit our first one here and click New. And as you can see now, we have a texture of clouds, and this is actually procedurally generated within a script in Blender that comes with it. So this is clouds. You'll see that it gave it a name like texture. It's totally different from material. So the material's name is cube, but the texture's name is texture, and this is totally different. So what we can actually do is name this cube underscore texture 1 just to keep us organized. And if you check on and off here, this will basically make it invisible or visible. So it gave us the default Blender procedural texture slot on our material. If we were to render that now, what would that look like? It would give us clouds with a immeasurable color balance on here. They're pink because they have no color influence yet. But we're going to change that. We don't want clouds. But I will go into how to make it an image in just a second, but I do want to go through these procedural generated textures first. So clouds are the default procedural generated textures. We have patterns like ocean, wood, voxel data, Voronoi. Voronoi is very good. Stucky, noise, Musgrave, marble, magic. We have tons of these different patterns for procedurally generated textures, and what this will allow is to keep adding these texture slots and make your own really nice, detailed, original textures. And if you add in images with that to layer in effects, it's really gonna help. And so if we go to Voronoi and switch this in render, you can see that it's now a Voronoi texture. Basically, that's a script telling it to render out peaks of Voronoi data. So that's what that is. And in the preview panel, we can actually see the preview of a texture, a material, or both side to side. And if we go to our preview and select material, we can actually see what that's going to look like. We're not going to be talking about mapping, or actually we will be talking about mapping here in a second, but right now we're on procedural textures. So colors is for changing the color scheme. So if we wanted to change our ramp here, you can see that the difference. So if we wanted to add maybe a ramp of red or blue, let's say, we can see that it definitely changes that up. it takes a lot of, there we go, you can kind of see how that would change up. It's extremely powerful, and it takes a lot of getting used to and learning exactly what this is all about. I encourage everyone watching this video to kind of go in here and mess around with this and see what you can kind of achieve with it. A lot of really interesting things that you can get with this. If you've seen my how to make a realistic rock video, that is really helpful in learning some procedural textures and how you can actually apply that through a modifier on how to create a rock. And it's really realistic. I might actually do a remake of that tutorial just because I really enjoy it, and I think I could revamp it. But let's get back to the point here. So this is procedural generated textures. You can add, so if I wanted to make a Musgrave and then come in here to my textures and add a new texture and make it a clouds, you can see that it is overlaying with it. So if we turn off the clouds, you can see that it's still there. If we turn off the Musgrave, they're actually on top of each other. It's a really cool system they have in place here. Let me move that back out to the side. So let's talk about influence here for a second. Influence is what it's basically. I want to say it's almost like blend modes in Photoshop when it's really not like that. So right now it's taking the color. Like I'll select my Voronoi cube texture 1 here, and it's actually influencing it by giving it color. And if I turn that off, it will have only been influencing it. It's actually not influencing it. Another really interesting thing is you have influences of diffuse, shading, geometry. Geometry would be for diffuse maps, or not diffuse maps, displacement maps, as well as normal maps. You can actually tweak that through here. And there are actual blend modes. So you have hue, saturation, overlay, multiply, subtract, add, mix is Blender's default thing. Basically that is a 50-50 depending on how many layers you have, so that'll divide evenly. It's extremely advanced. Like I said, you just got to get in here and learn it all. If you're familiar with the Blender interface, it's really going to help you out a lot to just come in here, understand it all, and get yourself familiarized with the pipeline. So in the next video, we're going to be going over how to load up an image onto this cube, and what that all means, and how that can help us achieve an actual textured material. And maybe we'll play around with some procedural generated textures to alter our material. Who knows? Join me up in part 3. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.